Hey there everybody, it's Eternal Snowman here with another episode of BLT recap and analysis. This time going through my NU match with Good. And this week I am playing NU because our NU player is busy. Sanjay was busy this week, so I stepped in and we are here with an NU game. And this week is the first week that drops were legal, so any sort of drops that came in from the last tiering change are actually legal this week. So what I wanted to do was build around Decidueye, who I believe is one of the best Pokemon currently in the metagame, and also the best drop that came down, and it's a new thing. I wanted to build around it. I thought something really cool would be the Choice Band Decidueye set, because being able to trap things with Spirit Shackles means that a lot of its softer checks, like DNC and stuff that you would normally want to pivot around, because it's a choice user. Choice users, like, because they're so strong, you generally want to pivot around to deal with them. But Decidueye limits how you can pivot around with it because of how Spirit Shackles works. Now, something when going through team building is that when you use Decidueye, one of the main answers to it in the current metagame is going to be Incineroar. And Incineroar is insanely good right now. So because Decidueye has the option to U-turn, this is the set I chose to use with it, with long reach to um, avoid Rocky Helmet / Iron Barbs damage, which is the case that you can get chipped by Dredagon or Ferroseed, which you just want to avoid unnecessary chip. And Overgrow doesn't help that much. Samurott was chosen as a partner to be able to take advantage of the U-turns that it's given. In the situation that Samurott is put in front of an Incineroar, then it can really go to work because it takes a huge chunk out of every single Pokemon, and nothing in NU right now is really safe against this Samurott set. Silvally-Steel is chosen for removal, but also as an answer to a lot of common stuff. For example, stuff like Vanillux, stuff like Whimsicott, that it needs to be a special wall for, and also provides answers to stuff like Comfy and other things, while also being part of a pivot core. So something that I really wanted to emphasize in this was using pivots to be able to bring in Decidueye and Samurott, because there's such efficient breakers and sweepers. And so Silvally and later on Incineroar and Passimian are later also going to be able to use pivot moves to be able to bring those in. And then Palossand is chosen because this current core is quite weak to stuff like fighting spam, like Metacham, like Braviary even, and also, of course, Passimian, which is the main answer, while also providing Stealth Rocks. And that was an important part of why I chose Palossand, because the other Stealth Rockers didn't really fit my role, as most of them lose pretty cleanly to Passimian, with the exception of DNC, but then DNC is not as solid for dealing with it as Palossand, and also DNC provides or like makes the team quite weak to ground types, so there's no real need to do that. Palossand is very good for this role. Then Incineroar is chosen as the next slot, as originally this was an offensive Incineroar set, but it provides an answer to other Decidueye, and also just like a general good offensive mon, or at least this originally was, and a secondary answer to stuff like Vanillux and Guzzlord and stuff. But this eventually changed to a defensive set, as it provides a lot more coverage for important mons. And that is really important when dealing with opposing Incineroar and Decidueye especially. And then Passimian is chosen in the last slot, as it and also one of the things that I was not really looking for is that the offensive Incineroar set really is good against fat, so like stall or like bulky offense. I don't think my opponent was going to bring that, so I was okay to switch to the more defensive variant. And then Passimian is chosen in the last slot, obligatory Scarfer, and it's just really good. It provides U-turn and just a good presence, as well as another Dark Resist, since I am bringing both Decidueye and Palossand. So having a knockoff well, more so a Dark switch in is nice. So we can just go straight into the match. And as you can see, The things that I need to be scared about this match, Rotom could be potentially troublesome because it does wall Passimian, and it can kind of pivot on everything. Vileplume could be troublesome depending on the set, but I can at least threaten it with a few Pokemon and here. So, and it seems like Mesprit is most likely going to be either Scarf or like maybe some sort of CM Z move set, because Miltank is going to be the Stealth Rock setter on this team. And then Rotom is most likely going to be Scarf if Mesprit isn't Scarf. If it's not, then it's going to be defensive like Colbur or something. Samurott, I think, is probably SDZ move. It could also be the same Life Orb set that I'm using, a Special Breaker set. Guzzlord, I'm not too sure which set it is. It could be either a mixed set, like that uses Assault Vest or Leftovers or something with, or Expert Belt, or it could be a spec set. But I should expect to play around specs because it's more threatening to my team. So I start off with Incineroar, and that's because I was expecting, I didn't want Vileplume to get a free switch in, as it is troublesome for my team to deal with. And also I don't want to see the Rotom lead, which would be very good against Passimian lead. So I just go ahead and click U-turn, expecting the Guzzlord to come in, and go Passimian and try to force it out and go back. He goes back to his Vileplume, and I just U-turn again and go to my Incineroar, and then I go for the knockoff. Yes, so knockoff here is safe because since Guzzlord revealed Leftovers, it means it's more of a defensive set, so I'm not too worried about it. Whereas Vileplume, if he stayed in on Vileplume, it would also knock the Leftovers or Black Sludge technically of Vileplume, which is pretty good as well. So I just go ahead and get off for a U-turn, and Guzzlord's getting chipped really heavily, and that's really good for Decidueye because Guzzlord is the primary answer to Decidueye on his team. And Miltank could be, but it's more likely to be Thick Fat than Sap Sipper, so it would still take a chunk from Leaf Blade. And I just go into my Silvally just to tank the hit, because Silvally isn't going to be super useful in this matchup. It's going to be sack fodder for either Mesprit or like switch-ins to Mesprit or Rotom, but it's not necessarily the most important one since I have answers to both of those already, since Incineroar is better at dealing with both. So I just go ahead and multi-attack as he reveals Earthquake, which is fine. It's not that big of a deal, but I get slept when I multi-attack the Vileplume. I go Incineroar just because it's safe, and I don't really want to be taking too much chip on a lot of my other stuff. And then I just go ahead and Fire Blast just to prevent him from healing. And he goes Miltank, so this is likely to be Stealth Rock, so I just go ahead and knock off his Leftovers, and then I switch to Palossand here, or actually no, I U-turn on the Milk Drink, and go to Palossand just to trade rocks to get them up. He's most likely Toxic and Seismic Toss in the last 2 slots, and as he reveals Toxic. So he does chip my Palossand, but it's not that big of a deal because Palossand isn't too good against his team either, other than providing a Volt immunity. And then I just pretty much want to get Passimian in to threaten the Miltank out, because the Miltank is kind of hard to kill. So he actually predicts my U-turn there, and I'm pretty much just trying to make sure that Passimian doesn't get Toxic, so I'm trying to get it in on a Milk Drink. So doing that here, and then he's trying to do a similar thing, except it's less important for him to have his Miltank healthy than it is for my, or sorry, it's less important for him to, his Miltank will beat my Palossand in the long run, so it's fine for him. So I go into my Passimian, and then I guess he doesn't want his Samurott to be weakened, so he switches out into Vileplume, and I just get a free switch into my Samurott, and this is where you can see Samurott puts in a lot of work because he doesn't have a solid switch into Samurott at all. So Vileplume goes down, and that's a big threat down, and then he goes into Rotom, and I pretty much just have to switch out because I don't want Samurott to be taking extra chip. It might live a Volt switch, but it's not guaranteed. And so he goes Mesprit, and I go Decidueye, and he actually decides to trade his Mesprit for Decidueye. Spirit Shackles was relatively safe there, as if he goes Miltank, it's not too bad for my team since he's almost guaranteed to pretty much to Milk Drink, so I can go Passimian, and then it's another 50-50. So because he used Ice Beam there, I'm suspecting that it's Scarf and then it's defensive Rotom. And this is confirmed with the use of Hex on Rotom into Volt Switch, meaning he's not Scarf on Rotom. Now, unfortunately, my my Incineroar is actually really, really low, and he instead of actually hitting 25%, which would have been ideal, I actually hit just above 25%, so my Iapapa Berry doesn't activate. And because I don't want his Miltank to heal, I knock off again. But I realized at this point that that was actually a misplay. I should have U-turned on that one. So he Toxics my Incineroar as I U-turn. I should have just U-turned the first time actually, but it's fine. And here, this is a free close combat. There's actually no reason for him to go Rotom here, because if he switches out of his Miltank, it's going to be at 15%, which means it can't even check the things that it needs to check. So Miltank goes down, and he goes into his Rotom as I go into my Incineroar. And Incineroar is pretty much dead at this point. It doesn't really matter as it catches the Volt Switch. And I just let it die to the Samurott. I clicked Wisp here just to prevent him from setting up. And then here I go Samurott. So I've been told that it's possible that if I went Passimian, it's less of a risk, because this is a speed tie, and then he could have Buginiumed me. But there's a couple things that could be the case here. So first off, because he's revealed Liquidation, it means that he's the physical set. So he could be Waterium Z. In the case that I win the speed tie, I always win this game. But in the case that it's Waterium Z, then I still win, because Waterium doesn't KO me from this percentage. In the case that he's Buginium, he needs to both win the speed tie and then be Buginium. And then it might have been better for me to go Passimian. But Passimian, in the case that I go Passimian, that it's actually the case that if I U-turn, it's potentially that he could SD and then deal with the Passimian as well. Afterwards, with some sort of combination of like switching to Rotom and going back and setting up his Samurott again, and then using Aqua Jet to kill the Passimian. So there's a chance that that could have happened. But it ends up the case that he actually just Mega Horns, and then I get the Grass Knot off. Even if it crits, the crit here doesn't matter, because even if he lives that, then I go into my Passimian and then U-turn, and then that's free. And then Shadow Sneak from Decidueye finishes off this game. And that was pretty clean. So, all in all, this game was pretty clean from my part. I feel really happy about how I won that game. And all of my techs came into play, and it was just a fun game to play. So, that's about it for this video. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed another recap and analysis. And if you are looking for more BLT content, there's going to be you can check out my channel for the week 1 content, and early next week, probably on Monday, I will be putting out a highlights and recap of the overall week 2 stuff, and just pretty much go through every single matchup that was notable. So that's about it for this one, and thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time for another recap and analysis.